Welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Here's your host, the Bitcoin Boomer himself, Gary Leland.
Hello, and welcome to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I am sitting in for Gary Leland, who is away today. My name is Teresa Martin, and I am with Flipcat Consulting. I work with all kinds of businesses, including Bitcoin businesses. And one of the exciting things that's taking place right now in the world of Bitcoin is not just about the money. It's about the developers and what they're working on to create tools, applications, and businesses in the world of Bitcoin. So today we're going to talk to one of the founders of a new business called Jippi, a new app called the Jippi App, and we'll introduce you to the founder named Oilver Porter and talk to you about what he's working on. But first, I want to emphasize something that Gary always likes to remind you. This is called the Bitcoin Boomer Show, but that's because Gary is a boomer. Technically, so am I, but sometimes I play like I'm Gen Z. Gen Z? No. Gen X? Millennial? I can't remember, but sort of a boomer, but Gary is the boomer. But it doesn't matter whether you're a boomer or Gen Z or somebody in between. If you're here and you're curious to learn about Bitcoin, what does it mean, what is sound money, and other ways to learn more about it, that's the purpose of this show. It is not to sell you anything. It's for us to help you find tools and information that can motivate you to learn more about Bitcoin and why it matters for your future. Oilver Porter is going to talk to us today about the Jippi app, which is bringing gamification to the world of Bitcoin. Stephanie, have you taken a look at this application, the Jippi app?
Yeah, I actually, when I was prepping for the show, I downloaded it, the Jippi, Jippi. I'm actually curious what that means.
Right.
I'm hoping Oilver will bring up what it means, but I also was intrigued by the fluffy creatures that I see. I haven't gotten to playing directly because I think I had to make an account, but I downloaded it. So I'm always down for free sats if there's any available and I can play. So I'm excited.
Well, that's great. I need to play it too, but I've been on the behind the scenes kind of working with Oilver a little bit, learning a bit about his business. And it's just, I like the design. I like the beast. I think it's going to be a success and a lot of fun for many people. All right, but before we dive into Jippi, we're going to hear a little bit from our sponsors. We're going to have them in order to bring this education to you. We will be back in a moment. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Boomer Show. I am Teresa, and today we are talking with Oilver Porter, and he is the founder of a business called Jippi, Jippi, and creator of the Jippi app. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that, his entrepreneurial journey, and how he came into Bitcoin, because we do want to be sure and educate you here about Bitcoin and anything else you might want to know about the Bitcoin world. That's part of Gary's purpose here in creating the Bitcoin Boomer Show. So first of all, let's welcome Oilver Porter. Good morning.
Hi, Teresa.
How are you?
So great to be here. I'm well. I'm really well, thank you. I got in a little late last night. I'm traveling right now, so I'm running on caffeine and fumes, but I'm here and I'm excited.
Yeah, so usually you're down in Austin, but you are traveling right now for just a little break from all the building that you've been doing as a developer, and you are in Vancouver?
Yes, correct. So I'm looking forward to rainforest hikes and nature, trying to find ground again after 7 months of intense building,
Yes.
as you mentioned.
Yeah, well, bring back some of that coolness to Texas, because I always say, I used to, but I never complain about the cold anymore, because it's going to be 100 in July and August soon enough. So the longer we can put that off, the better. So bring it back with you.
I'll try.
But before you do, thank you for joining us on the show. One of the goals, I believe we discussed before you came on air, is the fact that in creating this show, although it is called the Bitcoin Boomer Show, Gary emphasizes learning for anyone. They don't have to be a boomer. He's the boomer, but he wants to bring on guests to be able to talk about helping people understand Bitcoin, how it can be used in their lives to improve their lives and opportunities that they have. So tell us, first of all, a little bit about your background. And then if we have time in this segment, how you came into Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a software engineer by trade. I've been doing this for about 6 years now. I've worked at companies like Swan Bitcoin as a mobile engineer. I've worked at a company in the blockchain space called Topple. I've worked in other industries like wellness and edtech and insurance. So I would say that my skill set is really, it's the intersection between great design combined with front-end software engineering. And that's really where I see my value add, especially with tools like Jippi, is making something really simple, accessible, fun to use. I've done that throughout my career. For my Bitcoin story, I first heard about Bitcoin all the way back in 2015, and I was working with an individual called Jordan Polton, who is my boss, my manager. And at that stage, I think it was too early for me to understand the power of what Bitcoin represented. I didn't know what money meant. I wasn't in a position where I was able to make investments, for example. And then 2020 hit and the whole world exploded. And I was shut in my house. I felt quite a large push from government. And that was really uncomfortable to me. As a libertarian, I felt really strongly that this was not the right thing to do, is to shut people in their homes for 6 months to a year. And so Jordan pushed the Bitcoin standard over the table and said, I think it's probably time you read about this thing. And that's really where the rabbit hole began. You know, it was such a wake-up call to the power of the state, how much control they have over us and our money. I started researching into what money actually meant, and establishing that the US dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power since 1913. 40% of all money ever created was created in a single year during COVID in 2020. And the 10 richest billionaires during COVID, they doubled their wealth, while simultaneously the bottom 99% of us, we lost money. So I just felt like this new concept of what money represents. Money is broken, and the money that was printed during COVID went to the rich, and that felt super, super unjust to me. And I think Bitcoin is the solution to that problem.
I think you're not alone there. There are a lot of people that have either followed a similar journey coming into and learning about Bitcoin, or separately followed a similar journey just like yours because they were prompted by effects of what was happening during COVID, what they awoke to, or what was imposed upon them that made them made them uncomfortable, because they cared more about essential freedoms, whether they be libertarian or in another country or in this country. So you came back to the U.S. and landed in Texas and began working on a project called Jippi. We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a second. But when you think about helping people onboard themselves into Bitcoin, and they're new to this, but maybe they've had some of the impact that you experienced, what would you suggest are maybe 3 principles that they would consider learning about or that they should study regarding Bitcoin?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and bear with me because it might be detailed. But I would say first is actually understanding money. Why is money broken? What is money? And so money really is just a way for you to store your time and energy that you can redeem for goods and services in the future. That's all that money is. And anything has been used as money in the past, like glass beads and jars of sand and gold for millennia. Now we have this debt-based money called fiat money, and it's a pretty terrible form of money. For something to be classed as money, it basically has to be saleable across 3 different mediums. So space, it has to be pretty portable. Time, it has to maintain its value well into the future. And scales, can you divide this thing into smaller and larger units? So the truth is today our money is broken because it's not saleable across time. And that means it's not scarce. So our money leaks value constantly through inflation, and inflation is a hidden tax on the general population. And we saw that during COVID with all the money that was printed, the 40% of all money ever created. That led to a massive influx of new cash into or new money into the economy. And so the elites, the banks, the corporations, they get access to their money first, and therefore they buy up all the goods and services, and that drives up prices. So I would say the first concept to understand is what is money? Why does this inflation occur? And that leads you to the conclusion that money is broken. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I would say it's really important to understand the difference between centralization and decentralization. So when we talk about money, for it to operate effectively, money, it needs to fulfill two rules. One rule is you can't spend money that isn't yours. And two is you can't spend money that has been spent previously. The way a centralized system works is you have one entity, like a central bank or any other bank, that has permissions to update the central ledger of who pays who. And this solves the problem because no bad actors can get access to that ledger. So it's secure, but you have to trust the banks not to debase the currency. Why Bitcoin is so impressive is it achieves these same two rules through technology, through math. And so with Bitcoin, it's a decentralized system. And so first, you can't spend Bitcoin that isn't yours because you have a private key, and that private key is essentially the key to your Bitcoin. And that private key is completely random. There's almost as many atoms in the universe as is equal to the number of private keys. So it's impossible to guess. That means you have to know your key to spend your Bitcoin. And second is because the blockchain is decentralized, there's a public record of transactions that anybody can see. And so once transactions have been added to the blockchain through a process called proof of work, it's impossible to change. And it's always going to be there. So you can only spend your Bitcoin once. So just to recap on that point, trying to understand the difference between centralization, decentralization will help you understand Bitcoin. And finally, infinite supply versus fixed supply. So fiat has an infinite supply. Governments can continue to print money indefinitely. It will go to zero. Bitcoin will only have 21 million coins forever. It will increase in value forever. So I think it's a no-brainer at this point which money would be a better form of money.
Very good. I like that 3-point summary. And speaking of finite supply. We have a finite supply of minutes in this particular segment, so we're going to take a break here in just a moment to welcome our sponsors who support our show, and we hope that you'll come back and hear a little bit more about what Oliver's been working on and how it's going to help a large portion of our population really understand Bitcoin better. So we'll be back in just a few minutes with the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Stay tuned. Welcome back. We are talking with Oliver Porter, who is the founder of Jippi. But before we discuss Jippi a little further, there's a question that Gary likes to ask all of his guests on the Bitcoin Boomer Show. Oliver, if you're ready, here we go. That question is, what is Bitcoin?
A simple but complex question. So I view Bitcoin as this. It's a decentralized, incorruptible payments network that enables computers on that network to send and receive a scarce digital currency without the need for a third party. There are quite a few ways you can describe Bitcoin, from digital gold, from the most scarce money ever created, the payments network. So there are lots of modalities for you to understand it. But in that phrase, there's quite a lot to unpack. You know, it's decentralized because no one actor has control over Bitcoin. There are nodes in the network. The rules are all decentralized. It's incorruptible because it uses energy and mathematics to secure your money in the decentralized ledger. And there's no way for Bitcoin to essentially fail. It's the best form of money ever created. And so I think that we are at the best possible time alive to appreciate this new technology. And we'll see, because of its scarcity, we'll see Bitcoin increase in value forever. So I think the next phase for us now is to support builders in building the parallel economy. You know, for Bitcoin to succeed, the base layer needs to obviously work and operate, which it has done effectively for many, many years now. Further tools are created on top of it, like Lightning and others. And abstracted one layer above Lightning will be other companies like Jippi, who they use traditional Web 2 to integrate with the layers below. So now we're at a really interesting phase in history where we have lots of Bitcoin companies being built on top of these layers. And I can't be more excited to see where things go from here.
That's great. It's like you knew what my next question was going to be, because you mentioned supporting the builders and creating Bitcoin companies. And that is something, now that you're down in Austin and you were working with Swan, but after that, you went out on your own and started working full force on your own business, creating this new application called the Jippi App. And again, that's JIPPI.app. So you're part of Pleb Lab, and Pleb Lab is in Austin. Their focus is helping these Bitcoin-focused developers who are entrepreneurs creating Bitcoin companies, as you mentioned. And recently, they had their second annual Top Builder competition as part of their Startup Day. So for those who don't know, Pleb Lab, as I mentioned, is a home for developers to create tools that leverage Bitcoin and also the tools around Bitcoin. We've got Bitcoiners there who are developers working on AI, for instance. But one of the things that Pleb Lab does is host Startup Day, where they feature founders. And as part of that, last year we launched something called Top Builder. And it blossomed out of the concept of your typical 2.5, 3-day weekend hackathon to something broader, where builders came together to compete against each other. Top builder, top chef, you get the idea. And for 8 weeks, they worked on their projects. There were certain milestones that they needed to meet, and also were mentored by technical experts on the Bitcoin side, as well as business experts. Because if these folks are going to build a business and become entrepreneurs and startup founders, we needed to make sure that they had those chops. And Oliver, you joined the competition this year. And tell us a little bit about that experience, how it turned out for you. It
was challenging. Competing against some of the best builders in the space was a privilege. I was not expecting to win, honestly. When the other builders took the stages with their projects, I felt very honored just to be there because of the quality of these projects, like Sats GG. The amazing things that he did around literally streaming sats as a revenue model for watching video content was incredible. Lightning bounties as a way to post bounties and reward developers in sats for completing these bounties. Branta, just the volume of amazing projects was really high. But we did win. So Jippi won the competition. So we did beat those 14 other teams. And I think what really helped us was being able to demonstrate a compelling vision as to the problem set for onboarding the next generation of Bitcoiners. So I spent a lot of time on the presentation and trying to really understand the problem set, how to communicate it to the people watching. And we also managed to demo the app on the day, which I think really helps too, is having a product that's actually live. And can go wrong if you're demoing this thing live, but fortunately it didn't. But yes, it was a hugely amazing project to showcase. I built the Bitcoin beast catching logic for the competition in three months, and so it was just such a nice full circle moment, having competed the previous year and not making it to the finals, to actually go on to the finals and win the competition. Really nice full circle moment.
So I see the beasts there. They're pretty interesting. And I heard you say that it's a little bit like Pokemongo.
Yeah, so let me describe Jippi to you. So the core problem here we're trying to solve is that Gen Z are projected to be the largest generation in history, with 12 trillion of expected purchasing power by 2030. And we see this as future Bitcoin purchases that we need to unlock. And we do that through education. The problem is that Gen Z specifically have an 8-second attention span. So they're not going to read the Bitcoin Standard like I did. They're not going to listen to podcasts like this. So we really have a pretty short time frame through which we can actually capture their interest to educate them about Bitcoin. What they are interested in is games. So 90% of Gen Z play some type of game, 70% expect to earn rewards. So you have these two concepts of games and rewards that we can play with. Pokemon Go is one of the most successful mobile games ever. It peaked at 200 million monthly active users, brought in $1 billion in revenue. So we thought, why can't we build something similar on the Bitcoin side, where we can basically gamify the onboarding experience for Gen Z? And the first product that we have come up with, which was for Top Builder, is a augmented reality adventure game with a Bitcoin twist, or in other words, Pokemon Go for Bitcoin. So we have released a first generation of Bitcoin themed beasts, and these beasts are themed to do with Bitcoin. So you can see them here: Nakamoto Nick, Blockchain Bob, Proof of Work Patrick. They all have some kind of Bitcoin education tied to them, that when you catch them, you get that education, but you also are rewarded in sats as well. So it's quite a nice entry point for beginners. The goal here being is eventually we're going to be releasing more beasts. So every month there'll be new beasts to be released, new generations. And we'll be taking Jippi across America to hopefully every large city imaginable eventually. But for now, we're in Austin and Dallas, and shortly other cities in Texas as well.
Great. It sounds like a lot of fun. I know that when you were preparing for the final competition, you did digital competition and digital competition, digital outreach, like paid ads, online, social media, that kind of thing. But you paired that with live outreach because the Top Builder competition takes place at the same time as South by Southwest in Austin, which for those who aren't aware is a huge event, very heavily attended, in part by a high number of Gen Z. So that seemed to be like a good opportunity to test the digital side and the live side. But I heard an interesting stat the other day that while most businesses and most employees are starting to agree that they want to, or that they're going to return to work full-time in-house, Gen Z, here again, is different. They're saying, no, we want to stay home. And for something like Jippi, I think that plays an interesting role, because if they are able to, since they're such a large population, what's the number? 12 million? 12 what?
12 trillion of expected purchasing power by 2030.
And if the majority of them at this point in time want to stay at home, then the majority of them are going to be online more often than not. So I think that bodes well for something that you're building and working on. We're going to talk about this just a little further, but first we need to break for a moment to hear from our sponsors who support the show and enable us to bring this Bitcoin education to you. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned. We'll be right back. And now we're back having our conversation with the founder of the Jippi App. Oliver, you just mentioned to us before we went into the break a little something about the Gen Z population in particular, a very large population, 12 trillion in number. Supposed to be, if I remember correctly, I think I've heard you say this, boomers, of course, were one of the largest generations we've had, but Zoomers are just going to blow that away by sheer numbers. And so that represents a lot of change. It represents a lot of opportunity. But with respect to the Bitcoin principles that you mentioned earlier, and I took some notes, you mentioned 3 different principles that you thought would be important for someone new coming in to learn about Bitcoin to consider. And one is the fact that our money is broken, and understanding what that means and what's involved in how it became broken, and what is the opportunity to fix it or to move away from it to something better. The second principle, centralization versus decentralization, which is something Bitcoin represents, and that is actually a good thing for all of us. And then the finite supply. Gold is rare. That's one of the reasons we treasure it. But Bitcoin is even more rare because there's only so many that will be made, and it has a finite supply. Do you think that these are the exact same 3 principles that you would approach a Gen Z person in order to help them understand the opportunity with Bitcoin, what it could represent in their lives? Or is it a little different because they do seem to look at things differently?
Yeah, I think that the playing field is very different for this demographic. They tend to operate on values, which is a very important thing for Bitcoiners. We have some deep-rooted values about decentralization and privacy and freedom that maybe not everybody shares in the general population. So it's how do we communicate that value to people that don't see it as valuable? That's going to be one of the key missions of Jippi moving forwards. What's really interesting, though, is that if we talk about values, so according to McKinsey, 71%, 75% expect personalized interactions. So if 70% of Gen Z expect something that is tailored towards their interests, then maybe Jippi can do the same, because onboarding into Bitcoin is not linear. There isn't this one super simple track that will just educate you and there's a light bulb moment that's the same for everybody. It's vastly different. Some people approach it through the freedom angle. Some people approach it through the money go up, their savings continue to maintain value through time as fiat is decimated, and other things. So I think the values angle is important for us to be able to deal with for this generation. And so we're going to definitely explore with playing with allowing more curated experiences into Jippi through education. But to go back to Gen Z and their size, this is going to be the largest and richest generation in history. And so if we can target this demographic in a way that makes sense to them, what we can do is we can shape them towards Bitcoin as the only true valuable asset and away from altcoins. Because, this generation, they're probably going to be swayed towards the glitz and the glamour, the siren call of crypto casinos, because they can be more alluring in some ways. They have a lot more gamification. So Jippi's mission is to bring gamification to the Bitcoin space. And that's where I think we can do that meaningfully. We did run some promotions for South by Southwest, and that goal for Top Builder was to establish if there is interest in this demographic for Jippi. And so we did some social media promos. We got 25,000 total social media impressions, which is pretty great. Our highest performing Instagram video got 3.8 thousand views and a conversion rate of 2.6%. And for those that are not in the marketing space, anything above 1%, which is the industry average, is really good. So clearly something's working with this pokemongo for Bitcoin angle on Instagram with this demographic. We also did some offline stuff. So we had 500 cards that were given out, these call to action cards that were given out on the street with a Bitcoin Beast costume that we had made. And that got a 3.6 conversion rate. So that's even higher. So I think targeting Gen Z, we're going to have to do it really smart with values-based messaging, but I think that we can do it. And I think that Jippi is arguably best positioned, given the history of Pokemon Go, to successfully pull from the desire for gamification and rewards.
I like hearing those numbers, especially I didn't realize the 3% number for the costume in the street, man on the street kind of approach. Yeah. That's great. And of course, as you mentioned, the other tests. And I would like to remind the audience, or let the audience know, that these were micro tests. They were done over a short series of just 3 or 4 days, not a long week or a long month of campaigning. It's just little touch point tests just to see if we were on the right track or find out where we needed to tweak things. So I thought that was really interesting. And I say we simply because I'm involved a little bit with Plug Lab from time to time, and I happen to be down there for South by Southwest and got to see firsthand what Jippi was working on and their initiatives. I really appreciate one point that you just made, saying that onboarding into Bitcoin is not linear. And that ties back to your point about the statistic of needing to create a personalized or curated experience for Gen Z. At least that's what they'll be looking for. But it's also important for anybody that's coming in to learn about Bitcoin, because a little side project I have, I'm working on a book, and part of it delves into the different on-ramps, if you will, for how people are coming into or learning about Bitcoin and the Bitcoin mindset. Not everybody is going to come through the same doorway. So I appreciate that you're saying that, because I think it's encouraging to anyone who's listening to this podcast that regardless of what you already know or what you absolutely do not know about Bitcoin, there is a way for you to increase your knowledge and increase your motivation to study on your own or find tools or ask people, hey, is there a book? Is there a podcast? Is there a game that I can download? All of those items, because as you mentioned, it's nonlinear. So what we have on the screen right now is actually a little video clip. I think this was created just yesterday.
Yes, this was created by our chief marketing officer, and it's just a video showing the interactions that you will be having with these Bitcoin beast creatures and some of the Gen Z demographic catching these beasts. And we've basically created these 6 Foundation Series beasts I mentioned already that are themed towards certain topics, and we're going to be putting them at certain hotspots around a city. And your objective is to go to these hotspots and catch these beasts. And you'll be given either sats for the catch or also a coupon code from Bitcoin partners for some discounts. But what's really interesting is that we can start playing with this concept of this boss beast or a series of beasts. And if you catch this boss beast, there's actually an opportunity to earn 1 million sats. So there's really high ticket rewards on offer.
That's great. Yeah, they're very colorful. I like that. Are you the chief? I know you mentioned design. Are you the chief designer? Did you create the beast?
I didn't create the beasts myself, but basically all of the assets for Jippi have been either created by me or repurposed to personalize them to Bitcoin. Oh, so I think that's where we can definitely excel, is the design. The visuals is what captures people's interest. And Jippi, the name, for those of you who don't know, it means actual cost in Japanese. And that tied in to the actual cost of our debt-based money being inflation, which is a hidden tax on the general population. So there's quite a nice tie-in with the brand as well.
Mm-hmm. And how did you, quickly, because we only have a minute, how did you come up with this concept to even go this direction?
Simply put, I think that on-ramps are arguably one of the most popular, or at least it should be one of the most popular routes into Bitcoin. So something that would gamify the experience, provide education and rewards. Some of them exist out there, like Wiser, Simple Bitcoin, but education alone is probably not enough. You know, you need something entertaining and engaging, and something I could give to, let's say, my 16-year-old sister or 15-year-old brother, something I could give to the younger folks that would be motivated to start understanding Bitcoin with the back door of education, but the main value is the gaming. So I think for Bitcoin to happen successfully, we need to gamify the onboarding experience.
Right,
and that's what Jippi is.
Stickier so that they retain it as opposed to just straight up education. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the final segment for today and our conversation with the founder of the Jippi App. Oliver, we've learned a lot about Jippi today, but it's also done something rather unique in seeking funding. Now, every startup founder has to think about, how am I going to fund this? How am I going to build and grow this? How am I going to help support research and development or employees or get my concept out in front of people? How do I market it? And so on. And I understand that you're working with Timestamp, and for anybody that is a regular listener to the Bitcoin Boomer Show, previously when I sat in for Gary, I had the opportunity to interview Armand Maguarian, who is the founder of Timestamp. So how does Jippi use or work with Timestamp?
Yeah, we wanted to be very purposeful about how we fund Jippi, because obviously this is a Bitcoin project and it's quite hard to raise money for Bitcoin projects. We wanted to go directly to the plebs, and that's where Timestamp comes in. So timestamp allows us to raise money both from accredited investors, but also from the plebs, from the general public. So you don't actually need to be an accredited investor to invest. So anyone can actually sign up to timestamp and invest in Jippy's campaign. So we've raised
real quick,
close to 30% of our funds.
For the audience, if you don't mind, help them, for anybody who might be new to the show, what do you mean by the term pleb when it comes to Bitcoin?
So yes. So pleb is just the general population. It's the whole concept of Bitcoin is that no one has more power or control over the other. Everyone is equal. And so the plebs, we are all equal. We're a crowd of people who are supporters, and we're on this mission together. So anyone who can join this campaign, it's invest.timestampfinancial.com is the link, hopefully in the show notes as well. But if you invest in this campaign, we actually have certain perks and benefits for that with different tiers. And so the top tier is the diamond tier. If you scroll down a little bit, yeah, there you go, down there. So diamond tier, it basically gets you the option to get a unique beast designed to you for the game. And that's something that will work with you directly on. So your pseudonym is included in the game's lore. You also get access to VIP access to lots of other Jippy features and aspects of the game as well, private meetings with us. So basically the perks encourage folks to contribute to the campaign in ways that would really benefit Jippy's fundraising. One step down from that 10,000 investment is 5,000, and that's where you get a handcrafted Bitcoin Beast plushie. And we've worked with a amazing supplier who has designed all the beasts that we've currently worked on. So there's 21 designs so far. Every beast has a plushie. And so if you contribute to the campaign at $5,000 or more, you get a plushie and lots of other things too. So really just to say that this tool with timestamp is a way for us to finance a amazing Bitcoin project that's financed by the whole group of people. So we've raised nearly 30% of the campaign so far. The goal is 250K. So do invest. You can also reach me on Twitter or via email if you want to start the dialogue. So the communication, you have access to me. Please do talk to me about Jippy and how you can help further the goal.
Well, that's great. I think timestamp's only been around maybe a year now. So it's kind of new itself.
Same as us.
But it's nice to have platforms out there that enable the plebs, as you mentioned, be able to invest. Maybe it's not a high dollar amount compared to some accredited investors, but it's offered a new avenue for people who are interested in supporting Bitcoiners, Bitcoin founders, Bitcoin businesses at a modest level that's palatable for all without having to hit that accredited investor threshold and the requirements there too. So for those of you who are listening, please be sure to check out timestamp at invest.timestampfinancial.com and look for Jippy on there and the different perks and find your way to support them. Another way to get involved is to download the app, right?
Yeah, we have released it. You can download the early version of Beast Catch now on Android and also on Apple. So if you search for Jippy there, Jippi, or if you go to the website, which is shown on the bottom of the screen, jippi.app, you'll be able to download the app there. There's direct links to the app into the various app stores. So our beasts are currently available in Texas, but we will be launching to further cities very shortly once we get funding. So the route to funding will help us expand the game, build further features, and increase the rewards, which everyone will enjoy, obviously. But you can also reach me if you want to get in touch with me. Oliver@jippi.app is my personal email address, and my Twitter here is HeyOlpo. You're welcome to follow me, message me, start a dialogue.
So the Jippi app is designed to help onboard Gen Z, as we mentioned, but it's actually available to anybody to download, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Great. And what feedback have you received from people who've used it from, let's say, for example, what have you heard from an experienced Bitcoiner who really knows what they're looking for? A lot of the educational pieces are not new to them. What feedback have you received from them? And then separately, what have you heard from someone who's kind of new, kind of maybe part of this target demographic?
Yeah, really good questions. We received some extensive feedback from one of our users via email, who is actually a Bitcoiner in the space, works at one of the Bitcoin wallets. It was a paragraph of text, which is wonderful because that's what you want. You want someone who's really engaged with your product to offer you feedback so you can improve it. And this individual had glowing things to say, but lots of points for us to work on. Specifically around the education, I mentioned earlier that education isn't linear. So it's quite hard to produce a structured narrative that will take someone from no knowledge of Bitcoin, or at least minimal knowledge of Bitcoin, and educate them on money. Why is money broken? On cryptography, like how does Bitcoin work with proof of work and decentralization and consensus? Why are altcoins bad and Bitcoin is good? So that there's quite a lot of content to try and put a nice bow on and make it palatable for the masses. And that's really what we're trying to evolve as Jippi progresses, is to maybe produce more of a curated approach with education. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I would say that this is the early stage of beast catch. So it's not exactly where we want it to be. It's not going to be this dreamy billion-dollar pokemongo style experience yet, but we're getting there. So we have our beasts, we have our 3D creatures in game, and you can use your phone to see them in augmented reality. But we're going to be improving that experience as well as time goes on and as funding comes through to Jippi. So I think that the Bitcoiner, as I've been told by many other folks as well, the Bitcoiner said we have something special here, and I truly believe that we do something that no one else is doing. So that makes me pretty excited to see where this journey is going to take us. And then your follow-up question was around if someone in the Gen Z space has any feedback to share. So I mentioned my younger siblings. They are interested in Bitcoin, but they don't know where to start. And that's the key problem. And I showed them the application, and I could just see my little brother's eyes light up, because it seems like this thing is just perfect for what he's looking to do. He said he's got ADHD, so he's not going to read books. He's very clear that he's not going to read books. But as soon as I showed him the beast in real time, and he saw that creature in 3D, you could tell that he was going to immediately jump on this app, which he has. So it's just interesting to see the difference from one medium of learning through books versus something engaging and dynamic with the beasts. You can see him actually being really, really interested in this. So I think we're going to have a really, really exciting few months to years as we work on this product.
It is. It's interesting from the educational aspect, from you being a founder, from you and your company being one of the examples of Bitcoin entrepreneurship. And what we are building here is a parallel economy that is designed to lift all boats. And the more people understand that, the better for everyone. Oliver, I want to thank you for joining us today on the Bitcoin Boomer Show, especially all the way from Vancouver. Enjoy your time up there, and I'm sure we'll see you back in Texas, in Austin, working on the Jippi app very soon. Thank you, and best wishes. I hope that people will look you up at the Jippi app, download it, or visit online or at timestamp.com. Thanks. Well, that was a great show. Really enjoyed hearing about Jippi, how it came to fruition, and looking forward to catching some of those beasts. Stephanie, what did you think?
I thought the idea of modeling like the knowledge, the education of Bitcoin into a game similar to Pokemongo, since it is a very well-known game. I play it still. I dropped it, then I picked it up again last year. Anyway, it's so interesting. So I actually downloaded the app. Cool. I'm interested to see like what all is in there. I know Oliver mentioned like all the stuff. So I'm curious how to play with these beasts now. Mm-hmm. They look cute.
Yeah, they are. I like the design. I'm partial to the design. He did a really nice job with that. last but not least, just want to say thank you to Gary for letting me guest host again while he is away. I'm Teresa Martin. You can find me at Flipcat Consulting. I work with businesses, startups, law firms, and especially Bitcoin startups, helping their business ideas land on their feet. That's our goal. And also working in the Bitcoin world, I have an endeavor called the Bitcoin Editors, and you can find us at thebitcoineditors.com or on Twitter at the BTC Editors. We're available to help you take your idea into manuscript, into published work, and connect you with the right people, or help you just refine the book that you've written with editing and formula and so on. Speaking of books, you should check out bitblockboom.com/books and read Gary's book that he is one of the co-authors on, Bitcoin and the American Dream. And another great place to learn is, of course, Bitblock Boom. Recently, we just had the 8th annual Bitblock Boom, and it was a terrific conference. I think a lot of people sometimes wonder, should I spend money on Bitcoin and skip the conference? And I think that misses the point of part of what we get out of this community. And it's enrichment by hanging around with each other, listening to each other, learning in person, cannot be replaced. So I encourage you to take a look at bitblockboom.com. I'm not sure it's been updated for 2026, but you can still go and gather some information about what's coming for next year, save the dates. And one other thing, if you're in the Dallas area, look for on meetup.com/bitblockboom. It's an opportunity to come out, enjoy some barbecue once a month in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. We would love to see you. It's a great time just to relax, talk Bitcoin or not. Just have fun with Bitcoiners. Thanks for joining us today on the Bitcoin Boomer Show.